Hey there, Cancer. This is Seven Scorpion Tarot, and I want to welcome you to tonight's reading. So, tonight I was checking out to see what was floating around in your sign, and looks like all we've got is Mars. And Mars is now stationed direct instead of being retrograde. Thank goodness. But Mars being in your sign, that does bring a few themes with it. That being heightened emotions, overwhelm, and conflict would be some big themes coming through with that. And there are quite a few things, that can be attributed to that placement, but I wanted to focus on those kind of just because of the, I don't know, atmosphere, the social atmosphere right now. Maybe that macro view might be bleeding into our micro view or vice versa, either way. And like further compounding that those heightened emotions. So we'll do a self, shadow, and ego, and see in those areas of the psyche maybe where we need to concentrate on, uh, maybe where those wounds are getting tapped that might be bringing up heightened emotions, or just what the nature of the conflict is. So let's see. This is the banned book tarot. We'll start with the self. And this might be how we're reacting to what we're seeing going on in the world right now. This could also be how the self is impacted by conflict. And that could show up in a number of ways, depending on the nature of the conflict. If it's, again, that macro scale, if it's on that bigger, like there's plenty of things going on in the world right now to be feeling overwhelmed about. But in the sign of Cancer, that could also be familial, particularly the mother wound. And that doesn't necessarily have to be your actual mother. That could be someone who reminds you of her. Just fits that mother archetype, whether in its light or shadow expression, either way. And so that could be presenting in anyone of any gender. It's more about the archetype itself, not necessarily about the gender. It just kind of depends on, what fits for your situation. This could be some, I want to say, acceptance wounding, that maybe that authentic self hasn't been accepted or wasn't accepted in your family structure growing up. Uh, could be something that you got in touch with later in life. I'm trying to think of more happier examples. It's the negative ones are easier to come up with, I suppose. This could be if you are a parent yourself, or maybe expecting. This could represent potentially some worry, some of that overwhelm, that we were talking about with the different themes coming up. This could also feel like a fundamental change of self if, if you're a new parent. Uh, that is a monumental change. I'm a fur baby mom myself, so I only know that difference. I can't speak to the human babies. Cards are a little quiet today. I feel like I haven't hit on the right theme when that happens. And you could even take it out a layer further, like another existential layer. Mother Gaia, something feeling overwhelmed in that large of a scale, conflicted, particularly if that's something that you're passionate about, you do, that's part of your profession. Oh, there we go. 10 of Words, which is wands in this deck. Oh, that's 3. That's right at my limit. I'm going to keep all 3. We've got 10 of Words, Queen of Words, and 6 of Paper. So Wands and Pentacles. And the book choices are The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien for the 10 of Words. This Book is Gay by Juno Dawson, Queen of Words, and The Great Gatsby, F. Gotts Fitzgerald. Man, struggling on that. 6 of Paper, 6 of Pentacles. All in the self position. And they took so long to come out. So a burden that's been carried for a long time. And I went all the way out to that existential layer. And we got 3 cards. So I'm thinking there's whatever you're feeling overwhelmed about might actually transcend multiple scopes in your life. Like if you think of like your spheres of influence, your scope of concern as like a concentric circle, like a bullseye, then you're in the center, and then it's like your immediate concerns, things that can be, alligators that can be held at bay, and then whatever's coming down the pike, in that third layer. But the 10 of Words, that's going to be a burden that's getting ready to be laid down. So is this the culmination of some sort of conflict, of some sort of major conflict that is multifaceted, multi-layered? And the Queen of Words, the cat always stands out to me. It's usually or typically a black cat in the depiction. So maybe some orange cat behavior is in order. Queen of Ideas. And then 6 of Paper, that's going to be giving and receiving equally. So you might be laying down the burden of, you could be in a situation where you're now accepting that you will not give or receive equally, like whichever side of the fence that falls under. And that could have caused you great strife. Mm. Or, interesting, you may have to give equally because you were not given equally too. Like, someone did you dirty, now you're having to stand up to them, having to be that queen of words. And that might be literal. You might be standing up by way of words. Uh, because their actions or inactions, rather, since you didn't receive equally. Did I say that right? Either way, uh, it could be that their lack of action, their lack of giving to you, created this burden, and it built and built and built all the way to the 10 of Wands, 10 of Words, and you're getting ready to set that down. But there's still a little bit remaining to go. This is like, what's that quote from The Office? My, how the turntables? That's what that's making me think of. I just want to look up the Queen of Words. With a positive, confident, and helpful energy, the Queen of Words tells you that, like Juno, you have the power to lift up others. Share your gifts and stand up for those who need you now. Juno Dawson's fun and enlightening exploration of human sensuality and LGBTQIA+ issues has been banned for being sexually explicit in its guidance. So that does kind of riff off of what I was saying, that you're having to stand up. And when it says, stand up for those who need you now, that might mean you. That doesn't necessarily mean it's an external party. I'm gonna have to look into that book too. I'm curious. Start shuffling for the shadow. So I'm going to say this self position, this is like the nature of the conflict. Because I brought up like 3 themes: conflict, heightened emotions, and overwhelm. So we'll see how the shadow card plays out. And that 10 of Wands, I mean, the next card is the Page of Wands. That's the student. So you're right at the end, that tail end of the lesson. Now then, the Page of Wands would be the next step of you're learning from the lesson, because you don't want to, I mean, I wouldn't recommend it, but bypass in the healing process, because there's the lesson itself. Then you need to take a break. Then you need some TLC to absorb the shock, of that full suit of wands of whatever happened. And then you can turn it into something meaningful. But skipping right over to, like, this is the meaning of suffering. There's still the suffering part. It's not quite done yet if you're in the 10 of Wands. Oh, these came out in the last reading, the Lilith reading, but they were upright. the Call of the Wild and Animal Farm. So the Knight of Words and the King of Words. Lots of wands energies. So the messenger of words and the King of Words. And I was talking about the page, and that's like the one court card in this suit that isn't here. And bypassing. Okay. So in the shadow, that might be the challenge here, that whatever burden has been created or is going on, whatever it may be, has created such an imbalance in giving or receiving equally that you kind of just have to keep marching on. And then when you're in positions like that, it creates bypassing out of necessity. Because I don't know about anybody else, but I've been chasing a salary less than the cost of living for the past 20 years. Like, I've been promised raises, I've done the work, I've not been able to keep up with the cost of living. Needless to say, neither has my savings account, you know? And when you're in a position like that, where, yeah, things are going all right, but, you don't have a cushion or anything, you're still in survival mode. Like, you're not out of the woods yet, and just constantly chasing the, like, almighty dollar of they keep moving the goalpost, they keep dragging the carrot out further for the people at the bottom of the pyramid, not necessarily you go up a couple layers. Uh, but it creates that bypassing out of necessity, because what are you supposed to do if you literally cannot slow down? Like, the Instagram posts are nice and all that about, like, oh, take a break, you know, and do what's best for you. Cool. You have to have money for that, and quite a bit in this day and age. Like, it's not a small chunk of change anymore. Like, I think one of the um, most common pieces of financial advice is like build up a 6 months of savings. How? How? Not a single job I've ever had has ever paid me cost of living. And I have a degree and 10 years of experience in my field. What does it take to achieve the cost of living? Apparently, working hard and being educated isn't enough. Uh, and how long can you keep going under those circumstances? Of like, okay, you guys just don't reward me and you don't reward me. And then you continue to not only expect what you were expecting before, but more. The expectations keep going up and the pay does not. And at this point, I'm not seeing any benefit to job hopping. It's just the same problem at a different company. It's all the exact same thing. It's like a Black Mirror episode. I don't know. And you can only have so many broken promises until you're like, I'm done. I'm done playing this game. But then what do you do, like, to pay your bills and whatnot? It's just like this never ending cycle. I don't know. I'm gonna start shuffling for the ego. Uh, it's tough out there, man. Like, what are you supposed to do? And when it comes to employers, there's no accountability. Uh, all the burden is put on the employee to hold their feet to the fire to make sure that they keep their promises and whatnot. Um, Meanwhile, they're the ones with the budget. And I think it's incredibly telling of what their values actually are when most, if not all, I mean, I don't think this is exclusively true, but definitely most companies have a much higher hiring budget than they do a retention budget. They do not, they expect loyalty and they do not reward it. I don't know. And it's, I'm saying they as if these aren't other people just like us doing this. Hi, kitten. Welcome to the table. Did you hear me jibber jabbering? I think so. But it's like, we're going to sign you up for this marathon that we know you can't win and then chastise you for not doing better. And these are literal, actual people doing this to you. This is not corporations. These are other human beings choosing to do this to other human beings. And it might be, I'm doing this to you because, oh, that's going to stay sideways. But I might be doing this to you because if I don't, then I can't provide for my family. Cool. Then the cycle just continues. When does it stop? Who is going to stand up and actually do something about this? It doesn't appear to be employers. It doesn't appear to be elected representatives. What are we doing? I mean, that kind of leaves, the bottom of the pyramid to say, hey, we can't tolerate this anymore, you know? But we've got the Seven of Paper. All boys aren't blue. George M. Johnson. And kitten, you've cascaded all of the cards. Excuse me. So I'm going to read this as in motion since it did a little like loop-de-loop when it came out. Um, so Seven of Pentacles, that's going to be patience. And I've seen the interpretation in some ways as like your hard work is not paying off or you're still waiting for it to bloom. So you could look at it either way since this is emotion, but that both those scenarios fits for what I was rambling about because it's pentacles and talking about the material realm. If nothing pays off or just the goalpost keeps moving out like just far enough to where you cannot reach it, but close enough that it seems achievable, then you just stay on the hamster wheel. You just keep going. There's got to be a breaking point. And the people who have the most ability to do something about it are just resting on their laurels. And that's employers, that's people in management, that's people who are just saying, hey, the status quo benefits me. You suffering doesn't matter. Or like, there's nothing I can do. Yeah, no kidding. Not when you're just sitting there resting on your laurels. No kidding, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing that can be done. You have your own water, ma'am. You have your own water. I know mine seems much more scrumptious to you, but it's all excuses. Uh, if their retention budgets competed with their hiring budgets, there might be something they could do. And if that money exists just in the wrong bucket, there is something they can do, and they just aren't. And I think it's high time we start demanding better, not requesting better, not running faster on the hamster wheel until you see my worth, because that's a losing battle. That just opens a door for future faking of like, oh, maybe next quarter, or oh, maybe next year, next review season, yada, yada, yada. No, do something now. I've been running this marathon, I've been running this race without your help, and you keep expecting more. You keep expecting results. No, enough. That is just enough. The heightened emotions. Kitten, excuse me. Thank you. So I'm putting heightened emotions squarely in the ego after my little rant. And then, so that'll be, what was that? Overwhelm in the shadow. Yeah, because that can be the root of bypassing. Like, we talk about toxic positivity and whatnot. And yes, it does fall under that umbrella, but why? Like, why? Where is it coming from? Like, what's the root cause of that toxic positivity? Like, what discomfort are we trying to dodge? Or like the overwhelm? It's just too much sometimes for our brains, and no shame. It's getting down to the why is the first part of that. And this is the Audacity deck. Get some underlying energy, something to kind of unify things. So that Seven of Pentacles, excuse me. Oh, still dry here. Sorry about that. But the Seven of Pentacles, you might be really struggling with like, okay, when are these seeds gonna bloom? I need a harvest. I need like a potato to get through the winter. And at least summer's on the way. But that might be sort of the cause behind the loop-de-loop of, do I wait? Do I dig it up? Do I, is this soil torched? Do I need to move the plot over to a different section of land, rotate the soil? Uh, However it applies to your situation. And in extreme examples, do you need to abandon that plot of land altogether? I don't know. It all depends on what you're dealing with, because that soil might need a good long rest before it's going to grow anything new. There's only so much burden one can take, 10 of words, before it eventually has to be put down. That one. Because you can't endlessly march on without refueling, without resting, The dead end job. Okay. Maybe this is about work for some of us. And I mean, with the economic situation here in the States, like, it's not looking great. Like, it doesn't look like things are headed in the right direction, to say the actual least. Uh, I don't know if a new job will fix that. I don't know. I think this is one of those, like, because you can see the labyrinth back here. To me, that's saying overthinking, analysis paralysis. Eventually you have to make a decision, whether it's stick it out, whether this macro storm, in this dead end job, or take a chance, seek, seeking greener pastures can be a folly. That doesn't mean wherever you are is always good. Like, you got to use your discernment of what what's my goal, and not, after the pandemic, I have a really hard time with the where do you see yourself in 5 years? I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know. Uh but just like an idea, have your vision board, have your dreams, you know, and have steps towards that. If you want to be a best-selling author, have you Googled how to write a book, how to publish a book? Do you know what you're getting into? If you want to be the world's best rocket surgeon, how many years of medical school is that? It's just what what are the steps towards whatever it is you want to accomplish. Pisces, Ginger. So definitely the dreamer. Are you trying to steal my tissues, kitten? Can you not, please, ma'am? You have toys. I just got you a new one. It wiggles. Uh, I got her one of those, like, little floppy fishes. Occasionally I'll see her, like, prancing around with it in her mouth. But right now it seems like my box of tissues is more entertaining. Uh, but Pisces, Neptune energy. Delulu is a Salulu. Bet on yourself, and have a plan. Like, if you don't have the type of money that I think his last name in the book was Gatsby, right? But if you don't have the same type of money that he did, it's like that, those steps on your vision board towards whatever it is you want to achieve. It's just the radical acceptance approach of, okay, this is what I want, this is where I am. How far apart are these things, and how do we get from A to B? However long that Candyland board may be from start to finish, just figure out what that entails. And maybe after sorting out all the steps, flip your game board over, your journal over, sleep on it, and then look at it the next day, because you'll have, an initial reaction to it that'll be kind of like a temp check of how you really feel about that goal. And it's nice to, sleep on stuff to see if, did I miss any details? It lets your brain kind of recycle and whatnot. So, a lot to think about. But overall, I hope this helps. I hope this resonates. And if it doesn't, I hope the next one does. Thank you so much.